So clearly, whenever Libs of TikTok tweets about a school district or a hospital, those accounts get inundated with a variety of Libs of TikTok's followers, very clearly showing you that this account has this kind of negative effect. There is no denying this. Now, many of absolute fucking idiots that defend Libs of TikTok will be like, all she does is post the TikToks that the lefties have posted themselves. But that's not actually true. She posts docs. She posts names and addresses. She posts literal lies about what she's accusing these people of. She uses all manner of violent rhetoric as well. She editorializes and adds additional commentary on what she is reposting, meaning that she does not simply repost, follow, if you're a right-winger, follow. Simply reposting these TikToks and whatever would imply that that's literally it. And then that account just becomes a cringe compilation. And, you know, those can exist. But she adds additional commentary, charges of actual crimes that are lies, no evidence. Don't be stupid. There's no way you can believe that by this point. So I guess I'm just gonna get into it. We've had another mass tragedy in the greatest state the face of the earth has ever seen, the United States of America. And by state, I mean country, but nation state is the same thing. Anyway, it's not good. And in this case, it seems to be, instead of like in Buffalo, where it was targeted against black people because of the lies and slander and rhetoric of right-wingers, Fox News, Tucker Carlson, etc., this time it's been about queer people, also because of the lies, slander, rhetoric from Fox News, Tucker Carlson, et al., etc. as well. So I wanted to actually start off on a story of a hero, several of them, actually. From the New York Times, Army veteran went into combat mode to disarm the Club Q gunman. So this is about Colorado Springs. So anybody out there, you don't want to necessarily watch this, add it to your watch later, watch it when you're in a better spot, totally get it. But there is a lot of info here. We got a lot of tabs we're going to go through. Anyway, Richard M. Fierro? Who served for 15 years in the military, was at the nightclub in Colorado Springs with his family when the gunman opened fire. Quote, I just knew I had to take him down, he said. Richard M. Fierro was at a table in Club Q with his wife, daughter, and friends on Saturday watching a drag show when the sudden flash of gunfire ripped across the nightclub and instincts forged during 4 combat deployments in Iraq, Afghanistan instantly kicked in. Fight back, he told himself, protect your people. And thank God he was there. In an interview at his house on Monday, where his wife and daughter were still recovering from injuries, Mr. Fierro, 45, who spent 15 years as an Army officer and left as a major in 2013, according to military records, described charging through the chaos at the club, tackling the gunman, and beating him bloody with the gunman's own gun, based. Also, just to get out of in front of it, of course, not a big fan of what these suits that lead the military make our military service members do. Not a big fan of people who join the military because they are racist against Muslim majority nations and all this kind of stuff. However, a lot of people become soldiers because the idea of being able to get a good college degree as payment for your service in the military and then hopefully have a good life on top of that, because in the United States, higher education is prohibitively expensive, and instead of fixing that problem, they incentivize people to get higher education by literally selling your body. Some would say in less of an understandable way than somebody who might like do modeling online or something. Anyway, Mr. Fierro in this case, very based. Quote, I don't know exactly what I did. I just went into combat mode, Mr. Fierro said, shaking his head as he stood in his driveway, an American flag hanging limp in the freezing air. Quote, I just know I have to kill this guy before he kills us. The authorities are holding piece of garbage who will not be named, 22 years old, on charges of killing 5 people and say that 18 more people were injured in a rampage at the club that lasted only a few minutes. The death toll could have been much higher, officials said on Sunday, if patrons at the bar had not stopped the gunman. Quote, he saved a lot of lives, Mayor John Suthers said of Mr. Fierro. The mayor said he had spoken to Mr. Fierro and was struck by his humility. Quote, I have never encountered a person who engaged in such heroic actions and was so humble about it. I feel like you kind of have to be. I feel like in a lot of these stories, that's usually how it is. I don't know like how braggadocious he would possibly be about it. I feel like the type of person who would be in this position and be like braggadocious and boastful about it are the type of people that like think about this stuff when they're in the shower about like, oh my God, what if something happened? This is what I would do. I would, do a quadruple backflip over the table and take him out with my guns like John Wick. And those people would never actually do anything if the situation actually happened. When it comes to people who are about it, I feel like most of those people are going to be exercising a bit of humility and restraint when talking about it because they're actually about it. It was supposed to be a chill family night out. The combat veteran and his wife Jess joined their daughter Cassandra and longtime boyfriend Raymond Green Vance and 2 family friends to watch one of his daughter's friends perform a drag act. It was Mr. Fiato's first time at a drag show, and he was digging it, this is really good writing. This combat vet just digging the drag show. Hell yeah, what a Chad. He had spent 15 years in the army and now relished his role as a civilian and a father watching one of his daughter's old high school friends perform. Quote, "These kids want to live that way, want to have a good time, have at it," he said, a real libertarian. As he described the night, quote, "I'm happy about it because that is what I fought for, so they could do whatever the hell they want." Literal Giga Chad. Like, there's no notes. It is what it is. He's a Chad. Mr. Fiato was trying to get it better at going out. In Iraq and Afghanistan, he'd been shot at, seen roadside bombs shred trucks in his platoon, and lost friends. He was twice awarded the Bronze Star. The wars were both past and still present. There were things he could never forget. For a long time after coming home, crowds put him on edge. He couldn't help to be vigilant. In restaurants, he sat against the wall facing the door. No matter how much he tried to relax, part of him was always ready for an attack, like an itch that could not be scratched. He was too often distrustful, quick to anger. It had been hell on his wife and daughter. He was working on it. There was medication and sessions with a psychologist. He got rid of all the guns in the house. He grew his hair out long and grew a long white goatee to distance himself from his days in uniform. Also based. That's a good, it's a good combination for older gentlemen. I'm a big fan. That night at Club Q, he was not thinking of war at all. The women were dancing, he was joking with his friends, then the shooting started. It was a staccato of flashes by the front door, the familiar sound of small arms fire. Mr. Fredo knew it too well. Without thinking, he hit the floor, pulling his friend down with him. Bullets sprayed across the bar, smashing bottles and glasses. People screamed. Mr. Fierro looked up and saw a figure as big as a bear, easily more than 300 pounds, wearing body armor and carrying a rifle a lot like the one he had carried in Iraq. The shooter was moving through the bar toward a door leading to a patio where dozens of people had fled. So clearly, this guy came here to kill people and was looking to kill the people fleeing as well. Which, if I'm not mistaken, this is already, that would be an act of war in another country. Like, if it's a bunch of civilians fleeing an active fire situation with enemy combatants that aren't those civilians, and then you go and kill the civilians that are fleeing, I'm pretty sure that's a war crime. I could be wrong on that. The long-suppressed instincts of a platoon leader surged back to life. He raced across the room, grabbed the gunman by a handle in the back of his body armor, pulled him to the floor, and jumped on top of him. Quote, "Was he shooting at the time? Was he about to shoot? I don't know," Mr. Fierro said. "I just know I had to take him down." The two crashed on the floor. The gunman's military-style rifle clattered just out of reach. Mr. Fierro started to go for it, but then saw the gunman come up with a pistol in his other hand. He was very much prepared. He went here with the intent to kill queer people. I don't know that anybody could ever deny that. This is not some kind of apolitical incident that just happened out of nowhere. This required preparation, getting the body armor, getting the weapons, having a backup, a sidearm, right? Quote, "I grabbed the gun out of his hand and just started hitting him in the head over and over. Some would say not enough," Mr. Fierro said. As he held the man down and slammed the pistol down on his skull, Mr. Fierro started barking orders. He yelled for another club patron using a string of expletives based to grab the rifle, then told the patron to start kicking the gunman in the face. A drag dancer was passing by, and Mr. Fierro said he ordered her to stop the attacker with her high heels. Now, apparently, according to this Twitter account, Unlucky Banshee on Twitter, I think this is what's being corrected here. They say, quote, "The one who saved my life and stopped the shooter's face in was not a drag queen. She is a trans woman. Let's not call trans women drag queens during this time of grieving over a transphobic attack." I also want to make it clear, I don't think Richard knew that she's not a drag performer, but now that we know, let's correct it. And fair enough. All right. So I don't know that this has been amended since then. This New York Times article. The whole time, Mr. Fito said, he kept pummeling the shooter with a pistol while screaming obscenities. So I know there's like a base human instinct that unfortunately a lot of people have. Like, the reason the death penalty exists is because humans have this base instinct for retribution, for, paying back what bad deeds somebody has done in kind, etc., etc. I am against the death penalty. I am against the state being the arbiter of who gets to live or die, because a lot of people on death row aren't actually ending up being guilty of the crime that they end up being killed by the state for. It's very cringe. To be pro-death penalty is to be pro the state killing the wrong person a certain percent of the time. I forget. There were studies that are done. It's a certain percent, and any percent for me is too much. Just let them rot in a cell. Also, what if the cells fill up with so many people? Maybe free the nonviolent drug offenders that have been put in there to stop them from being able to vote, and also so that they can be used for slave labor via the 13th Amendment that ostensibly outlawed slavery. There you go. The nonviolent ones, let them go. You got more room now. So, many people would be like, oh, well, I can't believe they didn't just kill him, right? He just killed so many people. In this case, and I think in most of these cases, it's actually a good thing that this absolute piece of shit degenerate was allowed to live and then be taken into custody by the police. because now we can actually learn more about him if they end up going to trial, which would be odd because I don't know how you would possibly win a trial and not be convicted of a variety of crimes in this instance. But also when you have to stand before a judge for sentencing, you can find a lot of information about motive and a bunch of other things that might have contributed to this person doing what seems to be, in my view, this is my opinion, a premeditated attack based on anti-LGBTQ hatred, bigotry, a transphobic, queerphobic, homophobic attack at a gay bar. There's a fair amount of evidence that we've all actually been able to uncover, and by we, I mean people who are actually doing this reporting, about the gunman that leads us all to believe that this person was a right-winger that might have been allegedly activated to this attack via his media diet. And we'll get into that. But very based, Richard M. Fierro, based vet, pro-drag performance, pro-queer people just living their lives just like you and me. Very good. Now, we've got this heavy article on the absolute piece of shit whose name I will not be reading. Apparently, his grandfather ran for office in California as, drumroll please, a Republican. No way. Now, that's not enough to directly tie him to, any kind of right-leaning, but let's continue. Online records show the shooter living in an apartment complex address in Colorado Springs. Online records indicate he shares that address with his mother, 44, who works as a support engineer and previously lived in California. Laura has praised her father, outgoing California State Representative Randy Voepel, in Facebook posts writing, "Keep up the work, Dad. You work hard to improve our lives, and a lot of us take notice." On the shooter's birthday, Laura Voepel wrote on Facebook, "My boy's 15th birthday. He got head-to-toe 6'3", ghillie military suit, and he is surfing Cloud 9. She tagged her mother in the post, who Ancestry.com records confirm is Randy's ex-wife. So we got a campaign ad from Randy Voepel. Facebook posts made by his mother reveal he had been dealing with mental health issues. She often posted about her son in a Facebook group for women involved in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the Colorado Springs area. Ain't no hate like Christian love, brother. In one post in July 2021, she asked for help finding a criminal defense attorney. Quote, "Hello, sisters. Does anyone know of a fantastic defense attorney? I asked this with a heavy heart, but my family really needs some help at this time. We have cash to retain good counsel. Thank you." Her post about needing a criminal defense attorney came just after her son, the shooter, at the Colorado Springs gay bar, was arrested. This is me being shocked. Apparently, the shooter has had a history of criminal offenses, the extent to which we're about to learn more about. Randy Voepel was defeated after redistricting forced two Republicans to run against each other. Heavy has reached out to numerous members of Voepel's office to seek comment from him, including his chief of staff. Quote, "Randy Voepel was elected to represent California's 71st Assembly District in 2016. Before joining the Assembly, Randy served on the Santee City Council between 1996 and 2000. Man's been in this for a long time. And then served as mayor between 2000 and 2016, his bio reads. Randy is a Vietnam veteran, serving 2 tours in the conflict with the U.S. Navy. After leaving the service, he worked nearly 40 years in the insurance industry. Randy and his wife Susan live in Santee, where they raised their 2 children. After Heavy was first to report the suspect's familial tie to Randy Voepel, the Denver Gazette also confirmed the relationship. So here he is with a MAGA hat from Randy Voepel, quote, "Let us not only make America great again, but make California great again. Hell yeah. Grateful to be representing my district in the state assembly. Hashtag Inauguration Day." Wow. Shockingly, this guy's a fan of Donald Trump. No way. In Colorado Springs, the police chief told the assembled media that the shooter, 22, had entered the gay nightclub and opened fire. The suspect entered Club Q and immediately began shooting people inside. Vasquez says at least 2, quote, "heroic people confronted and stopped the shooter from being able to harm others," the chief said. All right, so there was a little bit more here. This is all about, we've already read a lot of that about this. So let's just continue. So now, number 2 from the Heavy article. The shooter was previously involved in a standoff with the police, I believe, following a bomb threat. So, as seems to be now routine for alleged transphobic people, bomb threats, very common, it seems like, especially against children's hospitals within the right-wing sphere lately. Very, very, very coincidental. This is from Sean Rice, KRDO, news reporter. New video tonight of the suspected Colorado Springs nightclub shooter being arrested back in June 2021 after allegedly making bomb threats in the area. Video comes from a woman who was renting a room to the shooter and his mother at the time. In 2021, the shooter was charged in a false bomb threat situation in the Lorson Ranch neighborhood of Colorado Springs. Somehow, this guy was allowed to get a gun to go and do this mass shooting, a military-style rifle. I don't know that it's been confirmed it was an AR-15. Regardless, y'all know my takes about, gun bans and whatnot, and, wait times for gun purchases, red flag laws. We won't get into that today. That coincides with the time frame in which his mother was seeking a criminal defense attorney. According to the June 18, 2021 press release from the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, the reporting party, quote, said her son was threatening to cause harm to her own son, was threatening to cause harm to her with a homemade bomb, multiple weapons, and ammunition. The reporting party was not in the home at the time when she made the call and was not sure where her son was. Authorities responded and realized the suspect, the shooter of the Colorado Springs nightclub, was in a residence just 1 mile away, according to the press release. The deputies contacted him by phone and he refused to surrender. The release indicates, and a tactical support unit responded to the scene and began evacuating 10 homes in the area as a precaution. Pretty big deal, You got to send in a tactical unit. You got to evacuate 10 homes in the area over this guy. Somehow, he was still in a position to be able to carry out the mass tragedy in Colorado Springs. Eventually, he complied and walked out the front door after a crisis negotiations unit became involved, the release says. The shooter was booked into the El Paso County Jail on charges of felony menacing and first-degree kidnapping, according to the release. That document indicated a mugshot for the shooter would be released in the future. Heavy contacted the jail to seek that mugshot and was sent to a voicemail that is full. Authorities would not comment on any past criminal history for the shooter. No ongoing court cases listed for the shooter in Colorado court records. No formal charges were ever filed, and the case was sealed, so it's not clear why, the Gazette reported. So he's charged with literal felonies, but eventually the case is just randomly sealed, and he's never actually prosecuted for any of the charges. Some would say, reasonable people would be able to suspect that should he have been prosecuted for these charges and potentially convicted of them, he may not have been in a position to carry out this hate attack against a Colorado LGBTQ bar. So just another example of the perpetrator of a mass shooting being on the radar of the local police and the FBI, somehow still being in a position to carry out the mass tragedy they end up carrying out. It seems like you could probably use some of this information as a preventative measure from allowing a person like this to procure the firearms, body armor, et cetera, or even, not allow him to be walking free if convicted of multiple felonies he was charged with. And then, 5 innocent people and multiple other innocents wouldn't have been wounded at the bar. Seems like if your interest as a law enforcement officer is justice and peace for everybody, that might be something you would want to look into. But for some reason, the case was sealed and nobody knows why. Let us remember that this is the grandson of a person who previously held a position of power, a Republican in California, Randy Vogel. Perhaps, completely unrelated. Quote, there is absolutely nothing here. The case was dropped, and I'm asking you either remove or update the story, the shooter told the Gazette in a voicemail. The entire case was dismissed. But why is the question? If there's a whole tactical unit, the FBI is involved as well. There's another unit trying to de-escalate the situation, and you get hit with felony charges. Why would the case just be randomly dismissed with no explanation? Quite curious. Number 3. The club held a drag show the evening of the mass shooting and promoted a, quote, all-ages musical drag brunch. Club Q called the tragedy a, quote, hate attack. On his Facebook page, Club Q wrote, quote, Club Q is devastated by the senseless attack on our community. Our prayers and thoughts are with all of the victims and their families and friends. We thank the quick reactions of heroic customers that subdued the gunman and ended this hate attack. Now, I don't know that we have confirmation that this is a one-to-one attack motivated by hate, but much in the same way that we ended up finding out that the Buffalo shooter, who traveled 3 hours out of his way to find a predominantly black area and then went into a grocery store that was known to be heavily frequented by black people, ended up going there and committed a mass shooting, who ended up also peddling the Great Replacement conspiracy theory that people like Tucker Carlson talk about, people like Matt Walsh talk about. Surely there's no connection there either. To hatred of any kind. Luckily, this guy, or I guess luckily for him, and I guess for us in this instance, this guy was taken alive. So hopefully we can find actual motive in court. Hopefully. We shall see. Quote, the look on his face, the determination, the anger as he entered the building, Club Q founder Matthew Haynes said, according to NBC News. Haynes said the shooter was on a, quote, definite mission. The outlet reported, adding that police have said a motive remains unclear. Club Q was slated to host 2 drag events over the weekend in celebration of Transgender Day of Remembrance. Oh yeah, I should say this happened on that day. The night of the attack, the club hosted a drag show according to its Facebook page. The drag show started at 9 p.m. on November 19, 2022. So, for those of you who haven't been paying the fuck attention, the entire right-wing media sphere, the Republican Party, has been spending millions upon millions of dollars and a whole lot of time on demonizing drag in a general sense, as a general concept. Also, cross-dressing as an extension of that. Also, LGBTQIA plus people as a whole, but particularly trans people, which they also lump in with drag queens, even though drag queens are usually cis men, literally drafting laws and passing legislation criminalizing trans existence in a variety of ways. This guy then goes and targets a LGBTQIA plus bar that is hosting drag events. One would say, reasonable people could come to the assumption, the guess, that this was probably maybe motivated by that rhetoric. Perhaps. So more on Colorado and its Congress people, its elected representatives. The congressman for Colorado Springs, Doug Lamborn, is a rabid MAGA politician who pushed to defund PBS for showing a gay wedding between 2 rodents, mind you, and wants to ban same-sex marriage. Republican Doug Lamborn seeks to defund PBS over gay Arthur episode. So, the congressman of Colorado Springs, where this hate attack occurred, is pretty vocal about not being a big fan of queer people generally. Surely there's no possible way that those views could have influenced one of the residents of this area who ended up going and doing this mass shooting. Don't be ridiculous. This was just a mentally ill shooter. A lone wolf, right? From Jillian Brandstetter on Twitter, as others have noted, Colorado Springs is a home base for far-right Christian nationalists, including the headquarters for Focus on the Family, which has ties to Vice President Mike Pence, by the way. Here's the organization's founder, James Dobson, reacting to the Obama administration's efforts to make schools safer for trans students in 2016. Quote, Obama, acting like a king, is wielding dictatorial powers never envisioned in the law. He is determined to change the way males and females relate to one another and, worse, how children perceive themselves. If you are a married man with any gumption, surely you will defend your wife's privacy and security in restroom facilities. Would you remain passive after knowing that a strange-looking man dressed like a woman has been peering over toilet cubicles to watch your wife in a private moment? Any evidence of this ever happening, by the way? You got any evidence? Any sources on this ever literally happening ever? Because we talk about the potential for it happening, but we never actually get any accounts of it being a thing. It's almost like this is a fantasy, a delusion, some would say, that you're inventing in your mind a conclusion that you've reached, and you're working back from that conclusion to try to justify it. Maybe. Might be a mental illness on your part. What should be done to the pervert who was using mirrors to watch women and girls in their stalls? By the way, the people that are usually doing this are not LGBTQ. Cis, heterosexual, religious men are the average child abuser, studies have shown. Go on. If you're a dad, I pray you will protect your little girls from men who walk in unannounced, unzip their pants, and urinate in front of them. Now, how is this happening? Are we in woke communist Joe Biden's America, where women's restrooms have urinals? Frankly, put a urinal in the women's restroom. I don't give a shit. But these guys don't like the idea of that. Is that already happening? Because I don't think it is. So, what? Like, dudes are just walking into the women's room and pissing on the floor? Do we have any sources on that one either? I don't think so. You're literally schizo-posting in front of us to justify your hatred. If this had happened 100 years ago, someone might have been shot. Where is today's manhood? God help us. Surely all of this couldn't possibly have influenced the person who ended up shooting up a gay bar. I wrote on Twitter after this had occurred, in the wake of the Colorado Springs LGBTQ plus bar shooting, remember that right-wing extremists have committed the great majority of extremist-related murders over the last decade. Don't make me tap the sign again. If you've watched this channel for any amount of time, you've seen this already, but I'm going to keep bringing it up because it is always going to be true. Right-wing extremists are the greatest domestic threat to the United States' national security. That is true. That is an evidence-based conclusion, and I have data to back it up. So the ADL has compiled this data into a very nice graph A lot of the data comes from the FBI. Domestic extremist-related killings in the U.S. by perpetrator affiliation from 2012 to 2021. 10 years. That's a lot of years. There's a lot of minutes and hours in those years. And there's 10 of them. 10. Right-wing extremists are responsible for the great majority of extremist-related murders over the last decade. So for 443 total deaths, right-wing extremism, all movements, account for 75%. Contrary to this, so-called Antifa, the greatest threat to Western civilization, left-wing extremism, including anarchists and black nationalists, a measly 4%. Domestic Islamist extremism, 20%. Now, I believe this graph is trying to separate these two because they're trying to draw, some kind of conclusion about Islamist extremism as it would compare to right-wing extremism. Maybe it's about the propensity for non-Islamists, usually Catholic or Christian people that happen to be white supremacists and whatnot doing this. But in my view, you could very easily lump domestic Islamist extremism in with the right-wing extremism of before, and that puts it up at 95%. Because Islamist extremists are overwhelmingly right-wing. Right-wing extremist-related killings in the U.S. by perpetrator affiliation. So we're getting a little pointed here. 333 total deaths. More than 3 out of 4 killings committed by right-wing extremists in the U.S. are committed by white supremacists. The same ideology that Tucker Carlson peddles. The same ideology that Matt Walsh peddles. The same ideology that Jesse Waters peddles. The same ideology that Ben Shapiro peddles, despite being a Jewish man himself. The same ideology that Candace Owens peddles, despite being a black woman herself. White supremacy accounted for 73% of the right-wing extremist-related killings of the last 10 years. Anti-government extremism, 18%. Incel and manosphere extremism, 5%. Anti-abortion and other right-wing extremism, 3%. And also, I just remembered when I was talking about the Islamist extremism part, right-wingers are jealous of those Muslim-majority countries like Saudi Arabia, like Qatar, for being theocratic, authoritarian dictatorships. The thing is, they don't like them because they're Muslim. They don't like them because they're brown. However, they like the idea of turning the United States into a Christian or Catholic, depending on who ends up winning that fight, theocratic dictatorship, authoritarian regime in the United States of America. Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, who we will be getting to shortly, are a big fan of this idea, it would turn out. Not good stuff, folks. Not good stuff. Now, of course, Republican politicians, surely their anti-trans, anti-queer rhetoric had nothing to do with it. We've got a bunch of different responses from a bunch of different people we're about to go through from the Republican side of things. How exciting. We got Lauren Boebert, who recently clinched by a manner of a couple hundred votes her seat in Colorado's 3rd House District. Lauren Boebert says, quote, "The news out of Colorado Springs is absolutely awful. This morning, the victims of their families are in my prayers. This lawless violence needs to end and end quickly." The biggest thrust here, this lawless violence. Lawless, you say. Some would say that shooting up people in general is lawless. I don't think you need to put in there that it's lawless. I think we all kind of understand that it is. But the reason she's doing that is because she's trying to flip this tragedy against queer people into a law and order kind of idea. Yeah, the idea that Democrats are so-called weak on crime. That's what she's doing here. And it's just thoughts and prayers shit. And yeah, here's a Lance of the Surfs, friend of the show, with receipts in the comments and many other people. From Lauren Boebert, "Trans women, also known as men, will be forced to sign up for the draft. It looks like Joe Biden just officially confirmed what a woman is and what a woman isn't." Another quote from Lauren Boebert, "Sending a message to all the drag queens out there, stay away from children in Colorado's 3rd District." We got more. Lauren Boebert says, quote, "The left is grooming our kids over LGBTQ inclusive flashcards." So she's talking shit on people who do drag. She's talking shit on trans people. She's talking shit on queer people generally, and has the absolute gall to pretend she had nothing to do about it. No way her rhetoric in her own state played a part in potentially incentivizing this mass tragedy at a queer bar. No way, man, that was hosting drag events. No way, man. AOC beat the shit out of her, metaphorically speaking, on Twitter as well. At Lauren Boebert, quote, "You have played a major role in elevating anti-LGBT plus hate rhetoric and anti-trans lies while spending your time in Congress blocking even the most common sense gun safety laws. Also, while not passing any legislation really at all. And being essentially useless in the House except for tweeting." Quote, "You don't get to thoughts and prayers your way out of this. Look inward and change." So everybody's eating her ass in the quote tweets. You know that shit ain't washed. We also got Tucker Carlson. So this is from Alejandro Caraballo. Tucker Carlson wants to pretend he's horrified by violence. Just last month, he had threat to children Christopher Rufo on to talk about how drag queens were, quote, sexualizing and harming children. He told viewers that they should, quote, arm themselves. Someone listened and acted on it. So we already watched this on a previous video, so we're not going to watch it again. But just know, over and over again, Tucker Carlson has said, when is somebody going to do something about this? When is somebody going to put a stop to this? When are common sense, law-abiding Americans going to do something about these so-called groomers, right? Multiple times. You could find perhaps even hours of footage of this man saying this, and people have compiled this in the past. The idea that the most popular news program in the United States of America, Tucker Carlson Tonight, might have played a part in putting these delusional thoughts into the head of this gunman in Colorado Springs might have led to the incident that we saw. Now, of course, when Fox News isn't, with no evidence, accusing queer people of abusing children, no evidence of one of the worst crimes most people can possibly think of, certainly I think that it's one of the worst crimes ever. When they're not doing that, well, they're not really talking about the shooting at this queer bar as well. This is from Media Matters. Fox News accounts for just 9% of all cable news coverage of the Club Q shooting. Since the attack, only 3 Fox shows covered the massacre for more than 3 minutes. So here we have a graph here. This is coverage hour and then minute. MSNBC has had 5 hours and 4 minutes of coverage on the shooting. CNN, which has recently been taking a bit of a rightward turn, 3 hours of coverage on CNN. Fox News, however, a measly 50 minutes. This is between November 20th, 2022 through noon Eastern Time, November 21st, 2022. A measly 50 minutes. You'd think they'd be really excited about it, you know? Those groomers are finally getting what they've been saying they should be getting based on the lies that they've been saying. You'd think they'd want to, do a victory lap over a job well done in their eyes, right? You'd think that. Apparently not, because the entire point of all of this is that right-wingers like it when their mentally ill and violent fan base that they know is prone to violence, you can literally look at the studies, at the data compiled, right-wing extremists, and their propensity for violence. They like it, they know it, but they don't want to take responsibility for it. They don't want to be held accountable for it, but they want to be able to incite it. So you can't just say, oh, I want you, my fans, the people that listen to me and treat me as an authority figure who have a whole lot of guns and nothing to do. They can't just say, go out and commit this mass tragedy. So they slowly but surely put the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together in these people's minds until those people end up snapping, going out and committing the crime. And then it's all thoughts and prayers. Like, who could possibly believe this lone wolf? Who could have seen this coming? Even though the police literally had a standoff with him after he threatened his own mother with a makeshift bomb, has a history of domestic violence, and was charged with multiple felonies, but never prosecuted. The case was dismissed, apparently. It was sealed. Who could have seen this coming? It's stochastic terrorism. The Nazis did it. It's not a new thing. Many people are, oh my God, you have a new word. Everybody's saying stochastic terrorism now. No, it's not new. And it's not new to the left either. Leftists have been talking about the right wing's propensity for violence and their use of stochastic terrorism to incite it for a long time. Gremlo, friend of the show, compiled a bunch of different tweets from right-wingers, seemingly not taking ownership for their own good work, in this case, for them. Gremlo said, quote, the narrative from the stochastic terrorists shown here is that violence against LGBTQ people is a product not of access to firearms or the very rhetoric they spew, but because gay and trans people are sexualizing kids, which is a lie and no proof has ever been produced for this, and any violence done against them is to protect said kids. That's why they call them so-called groomers. They essentially are calling all queer people and their allies pedophiles. And they'll be, going at these drag brunches. There's the famous video of one of the Proud Boys, I believe it was a Proud Boy, some right-wing nut job, who was literally wearing a kill your local pedophile shirt. You gotta wonder, these people are calling people just reading books to children in more clothing than a Disney princess pedophiles, and then wearing shirts saying kill them. Well, I wonder, what could they possibly think should be done about this? Who's to say? Who's to say, really? We've got a lot of cool people here. Chaya Raichik of Libs of TikTok, and now she's made an alt account because, she realizes that her name is out there of her own doing. Someone on Twitter, quote, the hate I feel for Chaya Raichik is not a hate I knew I could feel. I'm tweeting about this because I generally don't know how else to cope it with. We are being fucking murdered in the streets. How are you ever supposed to cope with that? She literally just says cope and seethe. like literally degenerate piece of human garbage, that at the very least, a kindness to her would be to restrict her use of social media, but likely criminal charges. There is a case to be made. That's a hefty charge, Conure. How could you possibly say that? Well, I'll get to it. We got Gays Against Groomers, which is just a right-wing PSYOP account that's pretending to be pro-LGBT. Well, I guess pro-LGB, usually without the T, but they keep it in there. They say, quote, undeniably true. If you want to see gay rights and LGBT people continuing to be attacked, just keep sexualizing, indoctrinating, and mutilating kids. Our organizations here not only protect children, but ourselves as well. Leave the kids alone and we'll all be left alone. So complete bullshit. By the way, the founder, one of the founders of the Gays Against Groomers account, literal neo-Nazi, has been exposed as posting a lot of neo-Nazi shit in the past. She also, the owner, or one of the founders, has also recognizes in the past, when it comes to BLM, that, oh, they put she said something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing, oh, they put Black Lives Matter, that's the name, to make it think that, oh, well, you guys must think Black lives don't matter. But that's, that's unfair, she says. But then she names her organization Gays Against Groomers, meaning that, well, who are the groomers? Well, not these gay people, the other ones, the pro-trans ones usually. Well, is that very fair? It's fucking stupid. Anyway, actual piece of shit. Now we've got threat to children. Matt Walsh, who, in his own words, paraphrasing, said that, the impregnation, in his words, of 16-year-old girls, Matt Walsh said, is okay, Matt Walsh said, as long as those girls get married to the person who impregnated them at 16, Matt Walsh said. And also said that they were the most fertile at that time, said Matt Walsh. So, taking any of his commentary about the safety of children seriously, I think most rational, reasonable people would not. I don't know why you would. But here he is, one of the biggest figures of the anti-trans panic. He's dedicated his entire life to it. Was recently embarrassed on Joe Rogan's program for lying about the amount of people on puberty blockers, and was fact-checked and was off by orders of magnitude, which we talked about in a recent video. Quote, leftists are using a mass shooting to try and blackmail us into accepting the castration and sexualization of children. This is no sources, nothing, we've never seen any actual evidence of this happening. It is just schizo posting, things he's inventing in his mind to attain power and money. These people are just beyond evil. I have never felt more motivated to oppose everything they stand for with every fiber of my being, despicable scumbags. So, a dude, potentially, allegedly, maybe, incited by your rhetoric against queer people, went to a queer bar and killed a bunch of queer people, and now your response is to say that you are more motivated than ever to oppose everything they stand for with every fiber of your being, queer people, and the left broadly who are pro-queer. Doesn't seem like you actually care that these people died. He goes on to say people die, and the first thing they think is, yes, we can use this as ammo against conservatives who don't think children should be exposed to drag shows. Soulless demons, evil to core, truly, just projection. Right-wingers, always projecting. That is one of the biggest playbooks that they've actually openly talked about themselves. They're happy to tell you that that's what they do. Behind closed doors, I guess. Matt Walsh is going to be, he wants to be anyway, one of the main people leading the charge of an actual genocide of queer people. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Matt Walsh wants queer people to die. He doesn't want them to exist in the world. He supports criminalizing it. He doesn't think even adults should be allowed to transition and go on hormones and get surgeries to be the people they want to be and exercise their individual liberty to be who they want to be. Much less, the children, of course, which is this major topic, is really interested and hyper-fixated on children. He just wants queer people to cease to exist, and he's fine with them being killed to meet that end. Simple as. Yeah, I'm literally not exaggerating. He's happy to tell you that himself. We got Ben Shapiro, the quest by the Democratic leadership and media to link a horrifically evil shooting at a Colorado gay club to anyone who doesn't support a progressive social agenda is ongoing and terrible for the country. It's a cynical game that only one side plays, and it's trash. Only one side plays it, you say. I responded in my infinite wisdom. When data shows that right-wing extremists are responsible for 75% of all extremist-related murders in the USA over the last decade, and 95% if you include Islamists, and the Colorado Springs shooter is now being added to that 75 to 95%, yes, it will primarily be the side that isn't in that 75% to 95% calling it out. Thank you, Mr. Facts and Logic Guy. When does the right have the opportunity to call out a left-winger who has committed a mass shooting? Literally almost never. The only one you can even think of is the congressional baseball shooter, who is apparently a lefty. That's all they got. Meanwhile, we got Colorado Springs, we got Buffalo, we've got a variety of school shooters as well. We got a whole laundry list. The real answer here is simple. Right-wingers are aware of the violent extremists that follow them and cite them in their manifestos after they've committed atrocities in the name of their shared ideology. They like this violence and want more of it, but don't want to be held responsible. And I know I said this already before, and I'm going to say it again, literally in the same video. I don't give a fuck. It is never stopping to be true. I believe there's also more receipts. Hey, here we go. So this was after the Quebec City mosque killer. In the weeks leading up to the shooting, it's a list of Twitter profiles that shooter, motivated by anti-Muslim hate, who went and shot up a mosque, list of the Twitter profiles that he visited and the number of times that he did. Now, on the top of the list, you got Ben Shapiro, editor-in-chief of the Daily Wire. You also got Tucker Carlson, third on the list. Only third. You gotta jack those numbers up, Tucker. Those are rookie numbers. You got Richard B. Spencer, a literal neo-Nazi, one of the leading heads of the alt-right neo-Nazi movement. Wow. Paul Joseph Watson, friend of and co-worker of Alex Jones. You got Ann Coulter, literal demon from hell. Mike Cernovich, also a neo-Nazi. Alex Jones, there he is. And so on and so forth. Now, if I was Ben Shapiro, I feel like I would not be super excited about piping up about any of this kind of shit happening. And talking about how the left trying to connect this to right-wing bigoted rhetoric is so absurd. It's just trash. I would shut the fuck up. Because in a just society, you would not have a social media account, and that's being kind. Criminal charges. There is a case to be made. So what's interesting, too, speaking of Alex Jones, the Alex Jones case, where he is literally having to pay, billions, if not trillions of dollars, he's been sentenced to pay to the families of Sandy Hook victims who he defamed, the court has found, actually does show a little bit of precedent about some of these other accounts and the rhetoric that they spew leading up to events like these. Alex Jones, contrary to what he said, didn't actually kill the kids of Sandy Hook. He didn't do it. I am a firm believer that Alex Jones was not the shooter there. However, he ended up defaming and talking a whole lot of shit and lying about the victims and the families of the Sandy Hook shooting. There is a bit of an analogy to be made between that case and the one of the Colorado Springs shooter who has been taken alive and will have to go before a judge, at the very least for sentencing, if not for trial, if they think they can beat charges somehow, right? So we'll see what they find. Now, speaking of politicizing mass shootings, we've got Matt Walsh and Ben Shapiro, who we just read. Here is their comments on the Club Q shooting. So the one that I just read from Ben Shapiro, and the ones that I just read from Matt Walsh. Oh my God, how could the left politicize a mass shooting and try to use it to political ends to try to get back at groups they don't like? And here's Matt Walsh after the Pulse nightclub shooting, which happened to be perpetrated by, I believe, a Muslim. Matt Walsh says, quote, "Yes, attack the NRA while making no mention of the Islamic groups that directly inspired this. You are reprehensible," meaning that not even just that the shooter was Muslim, but that Islamic groups whose rhetoric and actions inspired it directly, Matt Walsh says. I wonder. The entire case I've been laying out this entire segment about how their rhetoric has connections to and has the capability to incite the heavily deranged, delusional people who've bought into those lies, who happen to also be armed and willing to commit violence, to the tune of being the majority of extremist-related killings. He seems to be admitting that that's certainly possible. Ben Shapiro as well. "Anyone who blames guns rather than an Islamic terrorist for killing 50 people in the name of Islam is pathological." Using it for political gain because Ben Shapiro, not a big fan of Muslims. Not a big fan. There's a case to be made. And I hope that case gets made one day, and I hope it ends up turning out to be successful. We've also got, this is from Aaron Reed, we also got one of the bigger detransitioners who's been in the media a lot, being weaponized by the right-wingers that don't think any trans people should exist, much less any queer people should exist, who is weaponizing this detransitioner, who I don't know that I've seen any evidence to the contrary. In a general sense, detransitioners, I fully support, because they are essentially retransitioning back to being cis, right? Because it turns out they weren't trans, they thought they were, they went through whatever medical interventions, turns out they weren't trans, so they detransitioned. Also, you can only socially transition and then socially detransition. It's also possible. It doesn't have to be strictly medical, though obviously a lot of the time it is medical, and that's why there's a lot of regret involved. A lot of detransitioners out there who are in good faith, not weaponizing their pain for anti-queer political gain, fully support you. People like this, who use their experience to stop all trans people from being able to access healthcare, especially considering the desistance rates for trans people, the detransition rates for trans people are infinitely low, and also the majority of the time that people detransition is because they can't afford their medicine anymore, or don't have access to it anymore, so fix that, you don't have detransitioners anymore, or negative social situations because their family, friends, etc., community don't support them and are bigoted against them, are hateful against them, or even kill them in gay clubs, right? Fix that, and they don't detransition anymore either. And also, the gays against groomers who are reaffirming this. So the political detransitioner says, the vast majority of LGBT people who just want to live their lives are suffering because extremely radical trans activists are using the acronym as a shield for their degeneracy. So degeneracy, big wee-woo, I say it in a reclamatory sense. So maybe, they are as well. They could still be queer. I don't know. Just not trans anymore. But, when it's on the side of the right who is trying to take away the rights of trans people and you're a person who's working with those people, using the word degenerate kind of hits different, It has a bit of stank on it, you know what I mean? Considering its ties to literal Nazis, not even just the neo-Nazis, but also the Nazis. But anyway, 3 of the victims named so far, of those of the Colorado Springs shooting, 2 were trans. It is their rhetoric that leads to trans death. And this is true. This is true. Also, we've got Pope of the Transphobes, J.K. Rowling, is apparently liked a Libs of TikTok account post a day after Libs of TikTok targeted the only trans legislator in Colorado and drag shows in Colorado in the immediate aftermath of the Club Q shooting. She's part of the same system working to eliminate trans people from society. So here we have a post with a screenshot of J.K. Rowling allegedly liking a Libs of TikTok account. In this case, it's about Kanye West being brought back onto the platform, which we'll get to in a moment. So all this talk from all these people that has led to this Colorado Springs shooting, they're so worried about protecting children. People like Matt Walsh are really worried about protecting children. Really interested in children, generally speaking. Really interested in stopping people from being able to groom children. Which is a word that has lost all of its meaning and is now useless. Anti-child sexual abuse and exploitation groups have literally told right-wingers to shut the fuck up about using the term grooming incorrectly, which they always do, because it makes their jobs of protecting children harder to do, who now call literally all queer people and their allies groomers. Turns out, we actually have always known who the real groomers are. So this is a recent story. November 19, 2022, from WSOC TV 9, youth leader charged with sex crimes involving kids he met at churches. From Charlotte, police say a man who worked as a volunteer youth leader at several large churches in Charlotte has been charged with multiple child sex crimes involving kids at those churches. Benjamin Dameron, 36, is charged with 9 counts of indecent liberties with a child and 1 count of sexual battery, Charlotte and Mecklenburg police said. Dameron met all 3 victims in his role as a church youth leader, and police said he is accused of using his position to take advantage of and sexually assault several children. We've always known who the real groomers are in the actual definition of the word. We've always known who the real child sexual abusers are. The majority of states that still have laws on the books that allow for child marriage are Republican states, deeply Republican states. The Republican Party recently, I forget in which state, was also trying to write a bill that would allow for, with parental consent, schools to do corporal punishment to kids, to spank children. The amount of child marriages and the support for those, it's a right-wing phenomenon. Here comes Honey Boo Boo, child pageants, also very right-wing in red states. In a news conference Friday, CMPD said Dameron was arrested at his home. They said the victims in the case are teenage boys, and Dameron's charges in this case go back at least 5 years. The victims and their families knew Dameron, investigators said, and Dameron allegedly took the boys to his house and to several parks to be abused. So this is the case. Studies have shown that the majority of the time that child sexual abuse happens, it's not by some random drag queen or some random person that's, out there that just happens to find the child or whatever, goes and uses a bathroom, minds their own business and leaves. It's from somebody who knows the child, usually a parent or another trusted figure in the child's life, in this case, a member of this mega church in Charlotte. One of the victims is older than the age of 15, police added. On Saturday, police posted that Dameron had been released shortly after 2:30 a.m. Police said they started investigating the case on Wednesday when they received 2 separate reports with the same suspect. They said they identified 3 possible victims and interviewed them at Pat's Place Child Advocacy Center. According to police, Dameron has leadership roles within the following organizations: Elevation Church, Mercy Church, Southbrook Church, and at Soccer Shots as a soccer coach. This person is very involved with children. Dameron's Twitter account has him listed as a drummer for Elevation. It is there a source told Channel 9 he met one of his accusers. We know who the real groomers are. It has always been right-wingers. Now, it's not to say that, people on the left or Democrats or whatever can't also do this. It is to say that the idea that it's all queer people, all leftists, all left-wing people, all of pro-queer allies are groomers is completely factually false. And in fact, it has always been projection. Like, literally, the Nazis did this as well. The Nazis also did this. It is the same thing over and over again. History doesn't often repeat itself. It often rhymes, but it also seems to repeat itself in this case. Now, if we look a little bit deeper, turns out the accused here, Dameron, had a Twitter account. Why don't we look at who he's following on Twitter? This guy? Let's see who he's following. Because just because you go to church doesn't mean you're a right-winger, right? Just because you go to church doesn't describe your political beliefs, right? Wait. Wait just a minute. We've got Tucker Carlson, Matt Walsh, The Daily Wire as a whole, Steven Crowder, Michael Knowles, also of The Daily Wire. Well, isn't that interesting? Isn't it interesting that a person who is following some of the people who are at the forefront of, oh my God, what about the kids? What about the kids? You got to save the kids from these left-wing groomers, is now been accused of literally sex crimes involving kids he met at churches, 9 counts of indecent liberties with a child, 1 count of sexual battery. Met all 3 of the victims in his role as a church youth leader. Police said he is accused of using his position to take advantage of and sexually assault several children. Following Tucker Carlson, Matt Walsh, The Daily Wire, Steven Crowder, Michael Knowles. It's a short list as well. These were highly select people, it would seem. An old account as well. It was created in June 2009. We know who the groomers are. Moving on. Speaking of threats to children, we've got Libs of TikTok. Shia Rachik, everybody. Yay! Told you we'd get back to it. Aaron and the Read on Substack put together a pretty good coverage on Libs of TikTok and her rhetoric, Shia Rachik's rhetoric, about queer people. Quote, hours after LGBTQ mass shooting in Colorado, Libs of TikTok targets Colorado LGBTQ plus events. This is stochastic terrorism, and this is the inevitable end result of allowing it to fester in online spaces that we have warned about. Many people are awakening to terrible news this morning. Multiple dead and dozens injured at an LGBTQ plus bar in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Club Q, the bar on the site of the shooting, has been known for its drag events. This morning on Transgender Day of Remembrance, they were planning an all-ages drag show. Now, the blood of my queer siblings stain its floors. Yet only hours later, Libs of TikTok, Shia Rachik, an online account responsible for dozens of violent threats across the United States against LGBTQ plus people, saw this and seemingly said, yes, this more. If you weren't aware of Libs of TikTok, so we already have all that, over 1.5 million followers. Just days ago, bomb threats were sent to one of her most popular targets, Boston Children's Hospital. Again, not the first time, where they specifically were targeting the gender clinic meant for transgender youth. Libs of TikTok has been banned multiple times and likely was soon to be permanently banned before Elon Musk bought Twitter. Also, Elon Musk has credited Libs of TikTok as being one of the reasons why he wanted to buy Twitter to begin with, because he was tired of the censorious liberal communists that were running Twitter. Who, by the way, Elon Musk has not changed the moderation policy at all, except for now unbanning some of the worst people possible. We'll get into that. Shia Rachik, the woman who runs Libs of TikTok, has a history of stoking violence against LGBTQ plus organizations and drag events. Earlier this year, she targeted a town in Kiel, Wisconsin. This is one that you don't see a lot in the news, but we covered it here on the Conure YouTube channel, because officials were investigating the abuse of a young transgender student. The town was beset by bomb threats. This was before Boston Children's Hospital. People in her replies actively called for such threats. So these are tweets that are still up. Twitter has not acted. From May 14th, 2022, and May 13th and May 23rd. Now, Lamau stopped taking the moral high ground like conservatives always do and start bullying them and assaulting them. Another piece of shit. It's way past time parents started pushing back, and by pushing back, I mean putting the fear of God into these teachers and school boards. They won't stop until they're faced with losing everything. Here's the work email of the man who's suing the children. Would be a shame if people let him know how we feel about bullies. This person here says, probably getting death threats from you very sane and rational lot. Still don't agree with what he did and believe this will be thrown out expeditiously, as he should. During Pride, she tweeted against a Pride event in Idaho saying it was run by the Satanic Temple. People in the replies called for violence. Hours later, a group of Patriot Front terrorists, remember that? We did a video on that, were arrested and pulled out of a U-Haul by local authorities. In June, she tweeted that a drag queen story hour was going on in San Lorenzo Library in California. Hey, we also talked about that in this video and in the past. In her comments, people posted violent threats that were allowed to stay up on the platform alongside pictures of guns. A day later, militants showed up with shirts saying, quote, kill your local pedophile. So that's what I was talking about earlier. They are literally saying that all queer people and their allies are pedophiles, and they're also wearing shirts that say that you should kill them. Who's to say how this violence occurs? So we got a meme with a soldier says, please face the wall now. This is literally just saying, state-sanctioned executions. This morning, hours after the tragic deaths at Club Q, Libs of TikTok has targeted a transgender legislator. So this is a person in a position of power who happens to be transgender. That's a direct name, not just, broadly a children's hospital, though Libs of TikTok has also done direct names as well in the past, as well as an organization that hosts all ages drag events. This is a cold and calculated campaign of terror that they are waging on the LGBTQ plus community. She knows exactly what she is doing, and this cannot continue. She literally said cope and seethe to somebody who was grieving over the Colorado Springs shooting. Shire Rachik did. We don't know the motive of the shooter in Club Q in Colorado, but we got a good idea. But we do know that the motives of Shire Rachik by her actions. We know that she is aware that she calls targets and people answer. We know that she pays attention to these events and has decided that this morning she wants to stoke more. We know that she regularly targets transgender people in family-friendly transgender events, and that her followers regularly post violence. We know that she is part of a system of violence against our communities made up of other people who have likewise calls for violence, like Matt Walsh, Christopher Rufo, Tucker Carlson, all of which have said really weird things about children. We have been screaming, begging people to listen, that this would be the end result. Literally, I have, Shark300 has, Xander Hall has, Denims has, Vosh has, Hassan Abi has, everybody in our sphere here on Twitter has, AOC has, Ilhan Omar has, multiple people have said that this is what was going to happen if the absolute delusional, violent rhetoric based on lies was allowed to continue on platforms like Twitter. And here we have it. Allowing these people to continue doing what they do would lead to this. Now, only days after protections for LGBTQ plus people are dropped by one of the largest social media platforms on the internet, Twitter, queer blood has been spilled and the biggest hate account has decided more. So, here we have more. Shire Rachik, who's, totally upset about all this happening. We got a whole thread. From Aaron Reed, at this point, Shire Rachik, the person who runs Libs of TikTok, is openly gloating about instigating LGBTQ plus violence in the wake of the Colorado Springs mass shooting. She lists herself as a, quote, stochastic terrorist in her bio. She isn't denying her role when confronted. So here you have it. Shire Rachik, stochastic terrorist. Now, this is now in quotations, which we'll come to see. And also, I think she's trying to do the thing that Matt Walsh does, where he has theocratic fascists in his bio. It's like, oh, I'm owning it. You can't call me that, even though there's a really good case to be made that you are that, because I'm saying it myself. So, joke's on you, liberal. Except, when people are actually dead on the ground, I don't think it hits the same way. It's not a funny kek lol meme anymore. Here she is being confronted and responding sarcastically. So Keith Edwards here, quote, the real groomer is Libs of TikTok who grooms her followers to hate and to kill LGBTQ people. Yeah, I understand the sentiment here, but that's not what grooming is either. It's a very specific definition that does involve children and trying to make them more likely to be involved in pedophilic events and blah, 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 blah. The right wing never uses the term correctly, and I don't really like that people are doing it here either, but, we all have our faults. Shire Rachik quote tweets saying, I reported this tweet for using an anti-LGBTQ slur against me. Literally shaking right now, gonna go to my safe place, blah, 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 blah. Keith Edwards replied, and by the way, these clapbacks from the right, always very bad. Not exciting, not even funny, not ooh, you got him, I've seen right-wingers clap back on a rare occasion, and it's actually funny. And I've talked about how, whatever, I'll give you points for being funny about it. Not gonna give you any more credit than that, but, I'm fair. Boring. Keith Edwards replies, quote, what's impressive is that you managed to somehow be both insidiously evil and extremely mediocre. Hey, that's what I was saying. And by the way, so just in case there's any speculation if that's actually Shire Rachik who lives at TikTok, here is that account posting scheming with Tucker Carlson. Big fan of children, Tucker Carlson, who has literally defended people convicted of child sexual abuse in the past. Libs of TikTok quote tweet says, it's true. So clearly the same account. Aaron Reed goes on to say, advertisers, you're complicit in this. Twitter is complicit in this. Elon Musk is complicit in this. In fact, he is overjoyed about it. But we'll get into that in just a moment. We got more. More of this will happen if she is allowed to directly target hate speech to LGBTQ plus events and legislators. So Shire Rachik responds, quote, I put stochastic terrorist, the term they've been using for months to describe me that accurately describes what you do and who you are, in my bio to trigger the left. Mission finally accomplished. Holy shit, dude. It's so boring. At least be fun. At least be funny with your advocacy for violence against queer people. Come on. Give us a brief moment of levity in between you implying that queer people should be gunned down. And then it actually happens. Ari Drennan, who we've looked at a lot of reporting and tweets from before, says, Shia, people aren't triggered because you put in your bio that you're a stochastic terrorist. They're upset because you are inspiring stochastic terrorism, which there is a good case to be made. Please take a look at what happened in Colorado Springs, disavow violence, and reconsider how you are spending your time. This is a very civil, calm response given the subject matter from Ari Drennan here. Very diplomatic. Goes on to say, quote, "This lol isn't this funny approach the day after a mass shooting is new for you, publicly at least, and should be concerning to at least your lawyers if you don't have any friends who care about you enough to intervene." And you gotta imagine she doesn't. Chirachik responds, "I've publicly disavowed violence numerous times. Have you disavowed the violence directed at me as a result of you inciting your followers against me? Let's see you disavow violence, and until then, shut the fuck up, you lying hypocrite." Like, oh, the real victim in this case is Chirachik, of course, Libs a TikTok account holder. Obviously. So our Aaron Reed replies, "Disavow violence, get the fuck out of here. You're eating your words 12 hours too late. This was hours after people were laying dead on the ground at a venue doing the same thing in the same state you were targeting here. You've been doing this for months." So this is after the shooting. Libs a TikTok puts out another excellent tweet, in her eyes, I'm sure. "This organization in Colorado teaches kids how to become drag queens and helps kids, quote, safely experience the art of drag on stage." It's literally dress up. It's literally dress up. That's what drag is. It is literally dress up. And oftentimes these drag performers, especially at the all ages ones, are wearing more clothes that you would see on the beach, that you might even see in a Disney film. The old ones, before it was overtaken by the woke communist Disney. So for some more information, there's actually some interesting graphs that were put together here from September 24th, 2022. So this is way before. These graphs could look wildly different and not, favorably in Libs of TikTok's view. Hospitals don't generally get a ton of engagement on Twitter. And why would they? I don't know. I'm not tweeting at hospitals, usually. That all changes, however, when right-wing propagandist Libs of TikTok tweets about them, resulting in a deluge of mostly hostile replies and mentions. Here's what that looks like in graph form. So this is from Zella Quixote. So you got daily volume of tweets and replies tagging hospitals and medical facilities that Libs of TikTok tweeted about. So this is Sarah Bush News, who works with one of these medical facilities. This is tweets per day and the date. So you got literally nothing. And then now Libs of TikTok tweets about Sarah Bush News on July 2022. Oh, look at that. Tweets per day in the thousands, around 7,000 of them. Well, that's interesting. She's got a very big account, Chirachik, with Libs of TikTok. It's very large. She goes on Tucker Carlson and is pumped up by all other people, even like Elon Musk, the owner of Twitter now. Pretty popular. Tweets and replies tagging Children's National per day, a medical facility and hospital. So you got a small amount, little blips here and there for several months. Would you look at that? On September 2022, Libs of TikTok tweets about Children's National, all the way up to almost 5,000 tweets. And you got to imagine that if it's Libs of TikTok, and Libs of TikTok, Chirachik is accusing these children's hospitals of so-called mutilating kids, those probably aren't very positive tweets. There could be some positive tweets like, "Oh my God, I'm sorry this is happening to you," from people who aren't delusional mentally ill maniacs on the left who are in favor of people having access to the healthcare than the standards of care as it pertains to trans healthcare. But anyway, I digress. Tweets, replies tagging Boston Children's Hospital. So we got little bips and bops, a little bit of a blip here. And then, oh, look at that. A little bit before September 2022, an absolute mountain, an Empire State Building, the Burj Khalifa of tweets over several days. A lot of these are whoop, one big spike and then they fall off. This is fairly sustained, peaking at around 4,500. And, of course, we got Akron Children's Hospital, same story. UW Health, same story. Wake Forest Med, a little bit more. Whoop, one tweet, another tweet, whoop, another tweet. Oh, look at that. Who could have expected this? So it seems like that these hospitals are getting inundated with a lot of negative, you would imagine, given Libs of TikTok and the charges Libs of TikTok brings against them, with a lot of negative tweets. They go on to say, unsurprisingly, the same thing happens when Libs of TikTok tweets about a school or school district. The school or district's previously obscure Twitter accounts get swarmed by Libs of TikTok followers. So remember Kiel, Wisconsin, we were just talking about? When there was a Title IX investigation into, some students who were bullying a trans student. That school district, by the way, eventually dropped that investigation. So the people who literally did bomb threats against Kiel, Wisconsin in the school district won, unfortunately. Same graph style here. On a Cortez school, whoop, Libs of TikTok tweets. Linmar News tweets. AUHSD tweets. Look at all this engagement. Salem Kaiser, whole lot of engagement on this one. This seems to be a favorite of Libs of TikTok. PHL Schools, another favorite. So clearly, whenever libs of TikTok tweets about a school district or a hospital with fallacious claims with no evidence or proof of any wrongdoing that would not hold up in court, those accounts get inundated with a variety of libs of TikTok's followers, very clearly showing you that this account has this kind of negative effect. There is no denying this. Now, many of absolute fucking idiots that defend libs of TikTok will be like, oh, all she does is post the TikToks that the lefties have posted themselves. But that's not actually true. She posts docs. She posts names and addresses. She posts email addresses. She posts literal lies about what she's accusing these people of. She uses all manner of violent rhetoric as well. She editorializes and adds additional commentary on what she is reposting, meaning that she does not simply repost, follow. If you're a right-winger, follow, all right? Simply reposting these TikToks and whatever would imply that that's literally it. And then that account just becomes a cringe compilation. And, those can exist. But she adds additional commentary, charges of actual crimes that are lies, no evidence, names, addresses, docs. Don't be stupid. You are not as dumb as Chaya thinks you are. There's no way you can believe that by this point. And if you're still parroting that claim after being met with this information, then you're also a piece of shit and go fuck yourself. Anyway, even after being reprimanded by Twitter before Elon bought it, she comes back from a 7-day ban, continues to tweet about the same old shit, comes back from another 7-day ban, continues to tag school districts, continues to tag school districts again. Same old story. The day after, 5 queer people, 2 of which were trans, were killed in a mass shooting that seems to be allegedly, most likely, in my opinion, motivated by anti-queer hate, continues to post about, in the state that had that event happen, in Colorado, another drag event. Seemingly, she doesn't seem to care too much about what's happening here, to the point where she won't even try to moderate any of what she's doing. She's just going to keep doing it. There is a very clear pattern here, and you would have to be literally insane to not see it. There is a case to be made against the account libs of TikTok that it should not exist, but potentially even criminal charges. But Elon Musk is, chumming it up, as we'll see in a little bit. Now, of course, AOC, being based as always, seems to understand this pattern, not just about libs of TikTok, but also about all of the right-wing media sphere that has literally made it its entire life's mission to demonize queer people about crimes that have no evidence. Quote, after Trump elevated anti-immigrant and anti-Latino rhetoric, we had the deadliest anti-Latino shooting in modern history. After anti-Asian hate with COVID, Atlanta. Tree of Life, Emmanuel AME, Buffalo. And now after an anti-LGBT plus campaign, Colorado Springs. Connect the dots, GOP. But the thing is, they already have connected the dots, and they're fine with it. They don't care. They don't address anything to do with guns. Now, of course, in my view, I don't necessarily support gun bans. I don't think they're as effective. I support red flag laws, wait times for gun purchases, any kind of loopholes for gun purchases, the boyfriend loophole when it comes to domestic violence. I am very in favor of using domestic violence as a marker against people being able to get firearms, considering studies have shown around 60% of mass shooters have had a history with domestic violence. The dots are there, but the GOP actually makes the problem worse because they oppose any kind of actual good gun reform, like what I've mentioned here, but they also loosen gun restrictions, so they don't care. In fact, some may say they're excited about it. The first ever, I believe, representative-elect, she won her election, for Montana's 100th House District, a trans woman named Zoe, because of course she is. She's a trans. Zoe Zephyr, it's such a trans. I love it. Anyway, sorry. A story in 4 parts. Right-wing politicians, influencers stoke fear about LGBTQ people, calling us groomers/pedophiles. News agencies launder the talking points, legitimizing fear. Someone believes them, decides to kill us. Right-wing politicians feign empathy while we're left to grieve. That's literally in the playbook of stochastic terrorism. If you actually understand what that word means, which, obviously libs of TikTok, Chaya doesn't, that's literally part of the playbook. That's part of why they like the tactic of stochastic terrorism. You incite people with lies and violent rhetoric until somebody actually does something, and because you literally didn't quid pro quo say, hey, I want you to go do this violent crime, when that person goes and does that violent crime, based on all the rhetoric they've been hearing, they get to be like, oh, woe is me, how could this possibly have happened? We're all looking for the guy that did this. That's the benefit to the tactic. Now, at this point, it's a strategy, because they've been doing it for a long time. That's the entire point. That's why it is so insidious. So there is a case to be made against libs of TikTok. Now, unfortunately, everybody's favorite lolcow, who just happens to have enough money to not be just a lol cow. Elon Musk, here he is, yucking it up with the Libs of TikTok account, while they incite ongoing bomb threats against children's hospitals and a deadly mass shooting against LGBTQ clubs. Any company advertising on Twitter today is complicit, and this is true. A lot of the advertisers are already staying away from Twitter. Elon Musk is eating loss after loss monetarily, and probably to his sanity as well, if there was any left. Especially, after a trans woman steals your girl, your baby mama at that, he's reeling. We got a tweet from Libs of TikTok, how it started, how it's going. This was a previous Twitter employee. Twitter employee gets fired. Elon Musk replies to Libs of TikTok after not doing anything to moderate the account's behavior. Elon Musk says, quote, a tragic case of adult onset Tourette's. Now, some people might call out the ableism here, but you have to remember, this is Elon Musk. This man definitely has a variety of actual, mental illnesses, as we all do. As a fellow ADHD autist, speaking here, I think he has the pass. I will give him credit for that. His ableism, he's got the ableism pass, all right? You don't get to where he was without it. Anyway, so that's cool. Also, it would seem that Twitter's not doing too well. We've gone over this a little bit in the past. It's gotten worse since the last video we put on about it. But this is from Alex Heath from The Verge. Quote, hours after telling employees that they need to email updates of what they are doing every week, Elon Musk has cut basically all of their company perks, including wellness, productivity, home internet, training, and daycare allowances. So this is a very, very famous thing that CEOs, capital owners like to do. Usually when they're trying to increase their profit margins, they're going to usually target labor first, right? Labor costs capital owners a lot of money. Right? You want to make as much money as you can as a CEO. So where are you spending a lot of your money? Oh, well, you got to pay people to work for you because in the United States, ostensibly, slavery has been abolished. So they usually target labor. They try to lay people off, so-called trim the fat or reduce redundancies, right? They cut benefits as well. Part of the reason why the CEOs of these companies, especially the multinational ones that have a lot of money, enjoy the health insurance system in the United States is because for a lot of these jobs, like a lot of these lower level jobs, they're not actually made anymore to be providing health insurance to their people. The fact that workers cannot unionize and bargain for better wages is part of that. So here he is cutting it. So usually that's because they want to expand their profit margin and appease shareholders. In this case, Twitter didn't have any shareholders to appease. It's just him because he bought the whole thing for $44 billion and he is in the hole. So here he's just trying to stop the bleeding as much as possible, financially speaking, and has targeted all manner of employee benefits. Crazy, I know. How could this happen? This is after, by the way, he made an ultimatum to a bunch of Twitter employees that unless they were willing to work overtime late into the night and go hardcore, his words, on their work, that they can get, their 3-month severance and leave, or they can come back and work. And the majority of them left, except for, some insane people and people on H-1B visas, meaning that they could potentially see a variety of negative ramifications to their life, the lives of their family, potentially having to leave the United States if they do not have work. So they're kind of in a hostage situation and are being forced to work for this absolute fucking idiot, Elon Musk, who very clearly did not get to where he is based on any kind of intelligence, as we can see with his bungling of Twitter, buying it while in his bag about Grimes while drunk or something, making, one of the worst decisions of his life, surely. It's not good. Anyway, sorry, I gotta wrap this up. So in addition to this, Twitter under Elon Musk is allowing for Libs of TikTok to stay up. Twitter has also unbanned Andrew Tate recently. Twitter has also unbanned Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene was never actually fully banned because her personal account was banned, but she always had her government account. So she was kind of banned, but not really, because she was essentially using her government account the same way she would use her personal, except she can't fundraise, blah, 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 blah. This is from May 1st, 2022. From Alejandro Caraballo, this is going to get people killed, stochastic terrorism in actions. From Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, this is her government account before she was unbanned. Quote, groomer teachers are child predators. They must be removed completely from our education system. Children are not, quote, eggs to crack. It's every adult's responsibility to protect children from these monsters. So remember, when she was on Alex Jones's show InfoWars, she literally advocated violence against trans people. We did a story on this a while ago. Marjorie Taylor Greene is a danger to children. Not good. And now Twitter has unbanned Marjorie Taylor Greene's account. Twitter has unbanned literal just neo-Nazi, or at least white supremacist Sargon of Akkad. Who else did they unban, chat? There's a laundry list of some of the worst people. Oh, Kanye West, who was recently banned for rampant, out and about, and proud anti-Semitism. They've unbanned Kanye West. You know, Kanye West and Elon Musk have met up together. Who else, chat? Who else? Surely there are more than I'm forgetting. Oh, yeah, Donald Trump, though I've always been kind of two minds on Donald Trump. One, you know, he did incite an attempted insurrection on the Capitol, and that's not good, and he got banned once it started hurting Twitter's pocketbook, even though he broke the rules and could have been banned so many times before then because it got really bad on January 6th. But also, he's funny as fuck on Twitter. Like, he's a sassy bitch. You know, the Coca-Cola tweet, I'm still drinking that garbage. It's good stuff. So, fuck it, whatever. Not good, but if it's going to happen, at least we have that. So it's essentially, and I saw this from an Alejandro Caraballo tweet, and I ended up making this. It's essentially $8 Chen now. That's what it is. It's essentially $8 Chen. It's 8chan, home of the QAnon conspiracy theory. Elon's bringing everybody back, the worst possible people. It's essentially just $8 Chen, because you just pay $8 to get a verified check mark. The majority of people, apparently, I think it's around 150K, I was told earlier, people who bought the check mark, which is around like $1 million. Remember, Elon bought in at 44 million, so that hopefully you make $1 million a month, but even then, that's not enough, maybe even to cover keeping Twitter up, much less make up the difference of the investment. The majority of people who pay that $8 to use Twitter, a free app, have been right-wingers who saw the check mark as status and not security, as I've talked about on stream before, who can now buy that status for $8 a month, like most right-wingers have to do, buy that status instead of just being cool people that people like, and then getting that status that way. But it's actually security, but now it's not. See also the fucking lily pad account. What is the name of this account? The insulin. Its stock took a nosedive when it was impersonated by a check mark that somebody bought. Eli Lilly. Thank you, chat, for not telling me. I've already got it. Eli Lilly's stock portfolio, their stock price, which dipped dramatically after somebody impersonated their account using the blue check mark from Twitter, saying insulin is now free. They had to come out and say, no, insulin's not actually free. We're going to still keep price gouging everybody for a thing that they literally need to live and stay alive. Their stock price went into the shitter because of Twitter and Elon Musk. Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. And this is that. I just decided to make this because I thought it was funny. Whatever. Anyway, I'm meandering at this point. To end on a good note, as I always like to do in some of the worst situations possible, because that's just the kind of person I am. We got the Elm Fork John Brown Gun Club. The Fash love to push in with violence, and they just post fan cams for hours when they get stopped. So this was at a all-ages drag show, I believe. There was a bunch of armed pro-queer people that decided to protect this drag show because, we've seen so many other drag shows, usually highlighted by libs of TikTok, who have been met with violent rhetoric. People have showed up with weapons and menaced the people there. Now, queer people are showing up armed to defend their community because they know the police ain't going to do it. The police show up later and try to, subdue the person there if they're still active. And if anything else, they just call a bunch of ambulances and stuff. They don't prevent any of this shit. So we protect ourselves. Queer people protect ourselves. And this is something I've advocated for on stream and on my YouTube videos before. For self-defense and responsible firearm ownership. Those things are separate, but obviously the one is involved with the other. If you are anybody at all, but in this specific case, queer people, if you are queer, event, whatever denomination, you should definitely be looking into training at home, or if you can go somewhere, training in general self-defense. This means, any kind of like hand-to-hand combat, any kind of holds you can put people in to subdue them, potentially training with non-lethals like blunt objects, like a baseball bat, a crowbar, skateboard, whatever you got on you. You got pepper spray, stun guns, which are the ones you have to jab into people with the 2 electrodes on them. Tasers, which you can get civilian versions of in some places, which is the ones that shoot the electrodes out, which aren't, the greatest because they might not catch and whatever. Doing general self-defense training and training with those implements, those non-lethals that I've just talked about, is very important. I've been saying this for a long time. This has been my take for a long time. Also, first aid. If ever you're in a situation like this, God forbid, first aid training. Learn how to stop the bleeding. Learn how to resuscitate somebody. Learn how to essentially keep somebody alive for as long as possible until the ambulance shows up. That would be your duty if you're here and you are trained in that way. It's a big responsibility to take on, but it's very important. It's very useful in all cases, not just for queer people. All people, all of you. But in the United States of America, you also have the right to your Second Amendment to carry a firearm. But in that, I always say responsible firearm ownership. And the responsible part of that firearm ownership starts before you even bought the dang thing. It starts when you're considering getting one. Because not everybody is comfortable with owning a firearm or living in a house where firearms are present. If it's not you who owns it, but somebody else. Part of that responsible firearm ownership is understanding that about yourself and about the people around you, and letting the people around you that might be looking into purchasing a firearm for self-defense and voicing that to them, right? That is part of the responsible part there. After that, so if you understand that you're not comfortable with it because of whatever mental issues that you might be struggling with or whatever else it is, or, issues with potential security of the firearm, you do not necessarily have to have a firearm. There are non-lethals available that I've just described before. However, I do still think that taking a trip with hopefully somebody you know who is learned on firearms to a range and learning at the very least how firearms work, how to safely and responsibly operate one, and generally speaking, learn more about them, I still think is very important. Gun ranges are some of the safest places you're going to be for that, so long as everybody is operating as they should be, which is most often the case, right? I still think it's a good idea. And, if you have any kind of fears about firearms, actually using one in the setting of a gun range is a good way of alleviating that. Because you never know when you might be in a position where maybe there's an assailant and their gun is removed from them, right? And it flies off. And you want to make sure that gun, they can't get it back. Maybe you got to pick it up. Maybe you learn how to drop the mag out of it, get the bullet out of the chamber, put the safety on. You know what I mean? Knowing how to do these things, or God forbid having to use it to defend yourself, is very important, even if you don't own one yourself. All of these things are very important. Also, obviously, properly storing your firearms. Now, all of this that I'm saying, for all of you Euro cucks or anybody else out in actual civilized nations that don't regularly have mass shootings, all of this is in the context of the United States of America. It's a completely different context than a majority of other comparable nations. Because we have the Second Amendment, because we have more guns than our people in this country, you have to understand that this is the situation that the people in the United States are in. There are people that want to see queer people dead. On the right. Clearly, we just talked about one who went and did it. They have firearms because they have the ability to in the United States of America when there are more guns than people. They go out and do it. To have people sitting out in front of places like this as defense, because the cops ain't going to do it, is very helpful. Because like the Elm Fork John Brown Gun Club is saying here, they just post fan cams. They just try to make fun of the Antifa outside, and they're not able to do anything. Another tweet from the John Brown Gun Club: reduced to pathetic whining. Fascists don't like it when you're protecting children from a notorious street fighting gang and several hate groups. This is the future leftists want. A lot of the Christofash, so Christian fascists, stayed cowering entirely across the street. And here's the video of that. So this is not new either. The advocacy for people to, if you are in a marginalized minority, arm yourself or be familiar with arms, self-defense, and first aid is not new. One of the few times in the history of the United States, in its modern history, the Republican Party actually supported and passed gun control legislation was because the Black Panther Party would arm themselves, as was their right to do, and defend themselves in their community events from white supremacists, from the KKK. I believe it was the Reagan administration, was not a big fan of this. So they actually passed gun control laws so that they could not do that anymore. So that the minority groups, the marginalized groups, could not do it anymore. You have the right to do it. Obviously, you have to be aware of the laws in your specific state. That's part of the responsible part of the ownership of the firearm. But it's not new. It's not novel. It's not exciting. It is boring. It is mundane, and it shouldn't have to be done. But it is. And this is just where we are. So this is from the same event, I believe. I fucking love armed queer people, and you should too. This is an armed household I live in. I be shooting guns. My aim's actually pretty good. Don't go to the range nearly as much as I'd like, though. From Aaron Reed: Denton, Texas Proud Boys and Christian nationalists try to take a picture of kids in a transgender story hour. This isn't drag. They are against kids being read to by or about trans people, period. One even made it in. The bulk were kept away by counter-protesters, some armed. There we have it. Transgender story time. So this is not drag story time. This is not a cis man, usually, that's what a drag queen is, dressing up like a drag queen and reading to kids, which is the thing that happens, and no person of rational mind should really care about that, because usually these drag queens are wearing more clothes than your average, old school Disney princess. or even dressed up like them. This is just trans people. So it's not it's not obviously not just about drag. And also they've always conflated drag with trans people because they don't see trans people as actually trans. They see them as cross-dressers, and you get it. You've watched this YouTube channel. So here's a sign that says defend traditional values, like of child abuse, the majority of which is going on in the right wing, child marriage, or the majority of which is going on in the right wing and is being advocated by the right wing. Child marriage, which is the laws that allow for it, majority of Republican states. Got MAGA hats, there's one MAGA hat, got a Save America hat. Bro, you gotta look inside. You gotta look in a mirror. This motherfucker's probably not looking in mirrors too often. And here are some of the armed people outside that just, end up leaving the dumbasses on the other side of the street. It's very important. I know shit sucks. I know times are tough. Obviously, rest in peace to all of the victims and their families at Colorado Springs and Club Q. It is a profoundly devastating scenario. For me, personally, the way I react to these things, I don't feel much anymore, if I'm honest with you. And that's a symptom of the broader problem that is America and its propensity for gun violence, especially mass shootings of this sort. I don't get sad anymore. I don't get super upset. I get mad. I get angry that it's allowed to continue, that the people, libs of TikTok, Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson, the whole list, are allowed to continue to talk all the violent rhetoric that they've been talking. It then leads to a shooting happening and nothing is done about it. I get angry. And you should too. The thing is, what you should do with that anger is organize. Organize in your communities, do that self-defense training, do that first aid training, do that firearms training if that is something you're comfortable to do. Go to these community events. You don't have to be armed. You don't have to be one of the people out armed there if that's not something you want to do. But just go to them, enjoy your time, be part of your community, make these connections, form these networks with people around you, any mutual aid that you might be doing. Also organize electorally, or at the very least vote for the least bad option. Democrats are not pushing the same anti-trans shit, anti-queer shit that we've been seeing that has led to Colorado Springs. They're not the best on queer issues, but they're not Republicans. So vote for the best option in the primary in the Democratic Party. Vote for the least bad option in general, which is always the Democrats. And, just keep your head up, I guess. It's not really easy to end this. We're on a cool 2 hours now, so I gotta, because this was a hefty segment. My apologies, High Progressive. Hopefully there's not too much editing you have to do on this one, because I feel like I've been, just talking it. And I guess have a good day if you can.